I'm Ellis Genge, and you're listening to Bears Beyond the Gate podcast.
You're listening to Bears Beyond the Gate, a Bristol Bears podcast made by fans for fans, with 2.5 season card holders at Ashton Gate who love the club, the game, and all things Bears. I'm Pete, and I'm joined by Lee and Miles for a cheeky beer and a bit of rugby banter. Well, boys, this is a midweek pod, not one of our normal procedures, but there is a little bit of a story behind it. Who wants to say that? Maybe Lee, you're smiling really.
No, not at all. I'm under no illusions that I'm not in any position to take the mickey out of you on any technical term. So I'm going to hand that one over to Miles, Pete.
Miles?
Cheers, buddy. Well, you say for a cheeky beer and some rugby banter. However, there is a reason we are not in our usual Sunday night home at the Bristol Beer Factory, because we've already been there. And Pete had some technical issues, and I might say to fans, i.e., he mucked up with the batteries in the recording device. We got all of 5 minutes. We were chatting for the whole podcast. What, a good 45 minutes, some good in-depth analysis, some banter. But now we can just properly take the mickey out of Pete. And he's drinking a beer and I'm not, because it's a Wednesday night and we're re-recording a slightly sharper and snippier podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit...
But we should say, though, we didn't have to disclose any of that information.
No, of course not.
We're nothing but not honest, even though we make silly mistakes.
I know. I mean, it's gonna go down in history as the podcast that never was. A bit like the Grand National that never was. Yeah, the one in was it 93? The Grand National that never was. Was it Escher that won it?
That's right.
So we were sat in the tap room on Sunday night. We'd even had like a couple of pints, didn't we? I think I feel that we ought to mention what we drank, because it's not the tap room's fault that we're not there. So I think I had a nice pint of Wild West. Miles, what did you have? Can you remember about that far?
I had a couple of beers. I had a sort of, is it Echo? I don't know. Oh dear.
Was there one East of Eden? I think you had.
East of Eden, and then I followed Lee's beer choice and had the same. But very nice.
I do feel that we have to mention the Bristol Beer Factory, even though we're not actually. I
think we're frauds now. We just go in for a beer.
So it was it was a shocker. It was a shocker, boys. We sat there. We spoke for about 45 minutes, and when I got back, there was 5 minutes of chat on the corner. The batteries had run out. It was very basic, but anyway, it is what it is. Who knows? Yeah, Lee.
Just one quick one. That would just bring back memories. Then you talking about the national, and it never was, because I remember actually the year after, I'd had 20 quid on Richard Dunwoody on Mini Homer 1994, which won it. So that was a nice little payday for me. I think 16-1. I think.
Fair play. Well, it is a big racing week this week. So in a way that I know it was a different venue. But so maybe a little analogy to horse racing is good. But anyway, boys, we've got to get on with this pod. So yeah, it is a midweek pod, but we've actually got a bit of a treat for the listeners. So in many ways, I think it's been quite good, because it's made them wait a little bit longer. So because it's been the fallow period, we've tried to find a few other things to talk about, and we had quite a successful interview with Dave. Well, very successful interview with Dave Atwood. So we followed this up with another interview with a recent Bear, none other than the Bristol legend, currently residing in the west of Ireland, in Galway, Mr. Joe Joyce. So I had a chat with Joe last. Well, actually, it was about 10 days ago now, and we chatted about various bits and bobs. So we're going to get onto that very, very soon, and then we'll have a little comment about some of the things he said. But then after that, we'll have a quick chat about the women's game, because it might be the fallow period for the men, but Bristol Bears women have been in action and are purring nicely towards the playoffs. And then also there was a bit of a news coming out of the club last week, which was the World Book Day re-signings. So I think we'll have a little chat about that, and then we'll maybe finish with maybe. Well, I do have a little goat actually. It's a kind of nice goat, but I haven't had a goat for a while, so I've got a goat to go. So boys, are we all happy with that? Should we crack on?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's
Okay,
go.
so as I said, I had the pleasure of talking to Joe Joyce 10 days ago. Agreed to do an interview, and we had about a good old 25 minutes of chit chat. So without further ado, let's have a listen. So I'm really excited and happy to be joined by ex-Bristol legend, I should say, Joe Joyce, who has given up a bit of time in his busy schedule over in the Emerald Isle to talk to Bears Beyond the Gate. So Joe, really appreciate it. How are you doing?
No worries, mate. Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Well, look, what I thought we'd do is dive straight into that game in January when Bristol came over to Connacht, Champions Cup pool game. It was our third pool game, I think, and we were still within a chance of qualifying for the knockouts. As it turned out, we got dumped out of Europe twice that night because we didn't even make it into the Challenge Cup knockouts either. But I mean, I'm just thinking about from your perspective. I know you had a lot of friends and family came over to watch that game from Bristol. Did you kind of feel a bit more pressure because of it?
I think the weirdest thing was the beginning of the week. So we had the Monday meeting and we previewed Bristol. It didn't feel right. A part of me didn't actually want to play at the beginning of the week. I actually struggled quite a bit because obviously you're watching the coaches talking about your old team, your ex-teammates, the club, the community where you're from. Don't know, it just didn't feel quite right at the beginning of the week. And yeah, struggled a bit, but it got easier and easier during the week because obviously we got a job to do. And there's a lot on the line, like you said. I think we needed to win. We needed to get a bonus point win, and Bristol get nothing, or we had to win by 21 points. Something like that. So there was a lot on stake, and obviously Bears had a lot to pay for as well. I think Bristol could have made the Champions Cup as well, couldn't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I know you had more. I think it was harder for you to qualify.
Yeah.
So
we basically had to beat Bristol well to stay in Europe, and it happened. But yeah, it was a very weird day. But I actually spoke to Genji before because he's had experience playing against Bristol. I said to him in a week, I'm struggling.
I suppose you got John Muldoon there as well, didn't you? So
yeah.
I mean, were you two kind of lent on as for advice, or did you have to kind of lead the preview sessions and all that sort of stuff?
To be fair, I expected the whole week. I thought we asked a lot of questions by the coaches and by the players, but I wasn't asked anything. And the work the coach has done previewing Bristol, I never had to because they got it bang on the way Bristol play and the way we should attack them. And I didn't actually have to say anything, to be honest. And I think what happened, obviously the red card helped us.
Yeah.
But I think he had it spot on. And obviously John Muldoon was in the coach's office, so he's probably telling them what to do and things like that. So yeah, I never actually got asked anything, which made it easier for me. That whole week I was just focused on my job, and it was easier than I thought.
I mean, it was the sort of joke back in Bristol was that you were the best Bristol player on the pitch that night. I mean, you did have a great game. There's no doubt about it. And I'm not just saying that because you've come on the podcast. I mean, what's it kind of like before the game when Bristol turned up? Obviously you knew quite a lot of them. I mean, did you have any contact with them at all, or do you have to ignore them or what?
I didn't know if I should have done it or not, but I actually, because it was obviously a Friday night game, so Friday morning I actually went over to the hotel they were staying at, met a few of the boys, went for a coffee with some of the lads, caught up with Chris Boy, so I saw Pat. So they were pretending it was normal because it wasn't. So I saw the lads during the day, and then as soon as the warm up starts, then you forget their friends, and probably went the other way because it was difficult for me. I probably was too horrible and too. I don't know. I was too confrontational with Spec because I need to get out of my head that these are some of my best mates. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, I was going to ask you that because I watched it on telly, but it looked like there was a little bit of niggle in the game, a little bit with you and Sinks at one point, and then there was definitely a little bit. It looked like you and Joe Batley at some point as well. And I just wondered if it. I mean, it's the thing about rugby, isn't it? I mean, there could be niggle, and then at the end of the game, everyone shakes hands and sort of claps each other off. But I mean, was there a little bit of underlying niggle going on that night?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, obviously there was a bit of banter flying around, but obviously when we started winning by quite a bit, it probably rubbed up Sinks and Joe the wrong way. But especially with Bats, I was FaceTiming Bats the whole week. Do you know what I mean? We're good friends, but I do. But you watch enough of Bats when Bristol get a try or a penny, he likes to entertain the crowd, doesn't he, and irritate the other players. So I think Bristol scored, but and he ran over trying to get in everyone's face. And I was like, "I'll go away, mate." And he didn't find that funny. And then we had a bit of a conversation, but we were laughing straight after.
I mean, you mentioned a red card. I'm not sure really it made that much difference. Did you see what happened? Did you? I mean, the narrative has been is that it was just an accident.
I didn't see it, and when I saw it after, I felt very sorry for him because I don't know Josh too well, but I've met him a few times, and he's a great lad, and everyone at Bristol says what a great lad he is, and he's definitely not done it on purpose, has he? Everyone's forgetting as well, as he got kicked in the face himself, as he done it.
I know, it's Carl Sinclair kicked him.
Yeah, so he's been kicked in the face and red carded. But obviously he has stood on Finley's head, and Finley did have 1 or 2 stitches. It did look terrible. So, but there's no way. And I spoke to Finley, put in a statement and said it wasn't on purpose. Tried to help him. It's just one of those things. And he's very unlucky. It's same with high tackles. Like they call it reckless, but the amount of red cards you see, and they're not on purpose, but you've also got to make a statement, haven't you? If accidentally kicking someone in the face, you can get away with it. That's probably what they're thinking, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't think it would have made much difference. I think it looks just like the writing was on the wall. I mean, was there any point in that game that you thought Bears might get back in it, or were you did you feel as a team you were pretty confident that you're going to win that all the way through?
When that happened, actually, because I actually got us in a huddle, because sometimes when teams get a red card, it can like galvanise you.
Yeah.
And I know people in that Bristol pack, and I know that they're not quitters. Do you know what I mean? I thought this could actually galvanise them. So, but then 5-10 minutes after that, I realised it hasn't, and then we didn't really feel threatened. But I did panic when it happened, actually, because we were going well, like you said, we were the better team, and then sometimes big moments like that can happen, and it can change the game. But it didn't, thankfully, for us.
Have you I know you're obviously busy and stuff, and you've got your own job to do now, but have you followed Bristol at all this season? But Scott, it's been a bit of an ups and down. I suppose you must be in contact with a few people, like you said.
I've watched every game.
What's your thoughts then, as a pundit on the season so far?
It's a strange one, obviously, because I've been part of it. Let's say it is, we've been struggling. I keep saying we and Bristol boy. We've been struggling for 3 years, really, haven't we? That's the truth. And obviously, by looking from the outside, we're trying to implement more kicking game.
Yeah,
I think that worked at the beginning of the season, but also we were playing against teams missing a lot of players. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when teams don't get their players back, didn't think that game wasn't working, and all of a sudden, I think the game against us was the final straw. I think Pat came out and said after the Bath game that Steve Ansdine asked for the old Bears way back, didn't he?
To be honest, I think a lot of the fans found that quite weird, because it kind of was just a bit of a weird admittance on live on telly. I don't quite know. We still don't quite know why, but maybe just believed it. I don't know. It was odd.
Yeah, it was. But after that Bristol game, we had a week off, so I went to Tenerife for 5 days, and then flew from Tenerife back to Bristol to watch the Bath game.
Yeah.
So my wife wasn't happy with that, cutting the holiday short to watch Bristol Bath. But and I watched that and I thought, this is so different. I played against this group of players last week that were kicking and chasing everything, and now I'm seeing some of the best drives I've seen in ages.
I know. It was mental. That it's been one of those seasons. I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, we're only 4 points off sixth and 6 points off fourth. It's a couple of wins.
Top four still on.
Yeah, and like with this kind of break, it like maybe Saints who will fly in, they might kind of stop momentum. Whatever, we'll see what happens. So what I was going to do is just sort of go back a little bit in time. When Pat took over, what was your feeling about the whole thing? Because obviously they bring this guy in, like big reputation. He'd signed a load of players like Stevie Luatua, Luke Morahan. I mean, what was it like the first meeting that Pat did when he spoke to everybody? Can you remember that?
Yeah, it was one of the most impressive meetings or following months we've had, because when you talk about it, he had a plan straight away, talking about what he want to do with the culture, and it's very exciting, very out there. He said straight away, we're going to get promoted, we're going to stay up easy, we're going to challenge win the Premiership straight away, we want to win the European Cups. You think, well, part of you thinks like slow down, but then we actually done it for the first 4 years. But I did think, to be fair, when Pat, I thought this could be me done now, because I didn't play much year before, and with the greatest respect, the second rows weren't what they were when I left Bristol, I wasn't getting games. And then Pat signed 4 second rows. So I'm thinking, I'm already probably 4th choice, and he's just signed 4 locks. And there are locks like Chris Bowie, Joe Latta, Joe Batley, and it was easy as well. So I was like, I've got to impress the preseason, or I could be struggling. But yeah, thankfully I got my chance against Bedford and got my match away. And then he's just had faith in me since. If I was fit, I was in the squad for 5-6 years. So a lot to do to Pat.
It kind of always felt that he put faith in players and stuck with them, but then he could quite easily drop players as well. I'm thinking of Mitch Eady, actually. There was a game where he got sent off, and then he just never featured ever again. And he was potentially a very similar player to you, sort of wholehearted, Bristolian. And it kind of feels like sometimes it works both ways.
Yeah, it does work both ways. But tell you what Pat is very good at. He's very good at separating. Say if I was Pat's favourite player on a personal level and I had a stinker, he could drop me easily like that. He'd do what's best for the club, what's best for the team. So, but you're right. It was that game against London Irish. I thought Mitch had a brilliant game, and then it took a yellow card, and then London Irish came back, and we didn't really see Mitch again, did we?
I read somewhere the other day, because I thought I'd better do a bit of research, and I read some news report from some Irish paper, and it suggested that you might have signed a bit earlier. So was this something that you'd always sort of planned to do?
If I spent my whole career at Bristol, proudest man in the world, but then I got to, if I was ever to go, it would be Connacht, because my dad's side of the family, my dad likes them, and Munster is my mum's side as well, to be fair. But I never really felt a connection to them. And I'll tell the truth, if I had to pick a Premiership club, it would be Gloucester, just because I can still live in Bristol and it's not Bath.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and the opportunity came, and if I was ever going to leave, I didn't want to, if I was ever going to, it would be now, where the club who I would go to actually want me. And I'm still young enough to put in good performances, and not got a family yet, so it's easy to move and things like that. So it was a very emotional decision, but it wasn't as hard as people might think.
Because you made a decision quite early, didn't you? So you had quite a lot the season, but then you got injured, didn't you? I think, if I remember, and then
It's happened in the end of the 2022-2023 season.
Yeah.
Probably my best year. I was captain a lot, and at the end of the season, Pat offered me 3 more years and a testimonial. And then I thought, amazing. And I thought, well, if I agree to this, that's me Bristol forever, which is brilliant. Before I do that, I'll just test the waters. So I messaged Connacht, Munster, and Gloucester myself, and Connacht CEO flew down to see me 2 days later, and then I just started thinking about more and more, and then I thought, do you know what? I'm going to do it. It made sense. Like, professionally, it made sense. New league, less games, because I have 6 surgeries now as well. I know I'm 30, I've had 6 surgeries. It was less games, still a new challenge, traveling to places like South Africa and playing. And personally, family ties to Galway. It's not a hard move for a family, so I ain't got kids or anything yet. And then financially, it made sense as well. So it was like all 3 things all made sense. So, but then at Bristol, I felt like a rebuild was starting as well, and I don't think I would have the energy to be part of a rebuild now. So I've been at Bristol. I've had relegations, promotions, finished top, European Cups, rebrands, change of stadiums, training grounds. So it's like I haven't got that energy anymore to go through. Do you know what I mean? So if I was ever going to leave, I felt loved by the fans and everyone at the club. So if I leave now, it's on my terms, and I've still got good relationships.
Yeah, it's like Eric Cantona, isn't it? You left at the top of your game, throwing all those sardines out the back of the boat.
I say, and I also had a year left as well. So like I could announce I was leaving and then still give my all for another year. But then that year turns out to be the most injury hit season I've had in my worst year, which was upsetting. But it is what it is.
I know that because you did come on our podcast before when I think it was our 100th episode, and I think you spoke to Tony, and I remember him asking you like your ambition. You said that your ambition was to be captain of Bristol, beating Bath at the Rec, and you almost did it that season when It was that one where we lost in like injury time.
Yeah,
Hey,
last
do
day.
you still, is that still your ambition, or have you got any new ones?
Yeah, that came from when I first joined the academy when I was 14. Matt Sherritt, who's now Cardiff head coach, he was academy coach, and we got to write down our goals. I was like all the academy lads on the 14s, 15s, whatever it was. And everyone's goals was like play for England, be a British Lion. And I wrote that when I was 15, 14, captain of Bristol at a rep. And then that actually happened. And yeah, we were winning until the last minute. But still, to write a goal down as a 14-year-old, 15-year-old kid and be seconds away from it, do you know what I mean? Just to get that close was special. But we've beat Bath plenty of times at a rec, can't we? So
Yeah.
I can't
And you
can't agree.
have led the Blackbird on the rec as well, so I suppose that's pretty good. Where you are now, you said you're 30 now. You've had 6 surgeries, but you're well established in Connacht. What do you think you can achieve with Connacht? And I mean, have you got any aspirations for like international again, or do you think that's gone?
It's a dream, but the talent, the Irish thing about it, I was nowhere near the England setup, even though I was playing my best. And there are times I was playing against these players and I thought, I'm competing well here.
Yeah.
But the Irish ones are unbelievable.
I
And
know.
also what they've got coming through as well, even at Connacht as well. There's so many good. I wouldn't pick myself if I was our Ireland coach because I'm 30 years of age,
Yeah.
and why don't you just try and develop the lads that are coming through? Do you know what I mean? So
What about Connacht? Because I mean, I obviously they had their greatest ever season, 2016. I mean, I do keep an eye on every now and again. I mean, they, do pull off some quite good victories here and there. What is the expectation at the club about what they can achieve?
it's like a mindset shift, I think, because I think people think that Connacht are like the underdog status, and
Yeah.
we have got a small ground, the second lowest budget in the league, and it is not a brilliant rugby area. There's a lot of GA and the Irish sports here, but last year they got to the semi-final in the RC with 2 minutes left. They're 1 score away from a final. So that's got to be the task again, and we're sitting just below playoffs at the moment. And we've played, with all respect to every teams, we've done this Africa trip, was a hard one. We've played all the top teams already. We've got all the, you don't want to go into the game with this mindset, but we've got the nice fixtures all coming up now.
Yeah.
So we could find ourselves in 3 weeks' time, 4th and top 8's a playoff. So we're looking to go all the way, because when it comes to knockout rugby, you don't know, do you? Go back to the playoff days of the championship. We won the league by 21 points, didn't we?
Yeah.
You just got to get in them, and then you know what can happen.
I mean, talking about playoffs, I mean, Bristol won the league by distance, 21. Yeah. And then 28-0 up against Harlequins, and were you on the bench on that game? I think.
Yeah, that was crazy, because I listened to the Dave Atwood podcast last week.
Oh,
so
right.
I actually came on for him.
Yeah.
And with 25 minutes left, I ended up playing like an hour rugby. Anyway, and like he came off in the middle of the chaos, and I came on, and it was crazy. I remember I came on under the post and looking at everyone. I was like, everyone was in like a trance. I could see people didn't really know what was going on, and it was weird, because obviously I'm on the bench, and to come on and see everyone shell shocked and trying to get boys out of it, and then people getting injured all around us. Then we had 13 players because there's no subs left. It was crazy.
It was funny because Dave said that, like, because I asked him and said, like, well, what actually happened, and he said that he just felt that everyone expected to win. When it all started going wrong, he just didn't have that experience as a team, not individuals, but as a team, to kind of deal with it. And because it was the first time, and maybe Bristol had like overachieved a bit too quickly and whatnot. And it was quite interesting, really, because I hadn't really thought about it like that. And then I thought about the fact the fans, we were like the same, because we were shell shocked a little bit as well, and probably didn't really help, because Dave was saying all he could hear was the Harlequins fans, like,
that is true, but that comes down to the energy we're producing on the pitch also transmits into the crowd. It goes both ways. That so it's your fault.
It was. That's what I said to Dave. I admitted it. I said it's all our fault, and we agreed to agree on that. Well, look, mate, I got a couple of just like last minute like short, sharp questions, because I did a couple of those to Dave actually as well. So I was trying to think of a few that I could say to you. So short, sharp questions. First one is like Max Heath. Like, what is it like playing? Because he's supposed to be, he's like a tight head prop, really. I mean, I know
Yeah.
he plays loose as well, but is it acceptable that he walks around with a bum bag and has got 2 dogs that he carries under his armpits? I mean, is that acceptable?
It shouldn't be, but when you meet Max, it is straight away because he's such a. Because usually characters like Max, they're putting it on, they're putting it on. But what you see of Max, that is Max, and he is one of the best blokes you can meet. He's proper lad's lad. He do anything for his mates. He's just a wicked human being. He's also obviously very strange, but he's a great bloke.
Yeah, no, I think he's like the new breed of forwards. Because I said to Dave Atwood, because Dave Atwood is like pushing this Aperol spritz. Jake Warmore had his like gin. Like Max Leaf does his like recipes on Instagram. It's like, have you got anything like that going on that you need to tell us about?
Oh, a bit jealous of Jake Pedri's cider. I should have thought of that before Jake. Look,
Yeah,
Jake Pedri got his own cider, in Gloucester. So that's
gone.
the sort of. I'm not interested in gins or Aperol spritz, all that stuff. Nah, just bring out some version of the rough stuff, some rough cider, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, like, sort of like a spin off of Natch or something like that.
Yeah.
So, couple of questions. Semi Randrandra, to me, because whenever you won, and there was a lot when you were there, it was always be on socials. Semi Randrandra never looked like he knew the words ever. Did he ever learn them?
It's difficult. It's second language, but he did make up for it in energy, didn't he? He'd be banging things, making noises, and also in the game he probably scored 4 tries or something. So you let it off.
So you let him off. Fair enough. The other thing I was going to ask you was, which player do you think was like the hardest player?
Bears days, yeah.
Yeah.
Bears every game relentless.
Not Andy Uran.
Not Andy Uran. Selective toughness. Alan Patty. He's a tough man.
Yeah.
In all areas,
he was quite. He had kind of square head as well, didn't he?
He's got no ACLs. He got no ACLs, either knees.
Really?
No, and he's just plays for anything. Runs through brick walls. Scary man. There's probably a few more. Jan Thomas, Genji. Do you know who's incredibly tough? You wouldn't think it.
Who?
It's Fitzharden.
Wow, it doesn't surprise me that. And you know what? I thought he was a bit unlucky that nobody talked about him getting picked for that England A squad. And they're talking there.
There's a lot of games this year, aren't he?
Yeah. I mean, I assume he's obviously got something about him, because to be made captain at that age, and he's basically a student as well, it was pretty impressive. I thought. I
think in terms of being bang up for every training session as well, not just a game, every day in training, he can get absolutely writ off in a carry, and he put his hand up for a next ball carry. Throw his head into anything. I'm not saying we're talking about fighting or anything, but he's, in terms of rugby tough, he's tough boy. I noticed this season he had shaved all his hair off and stuff, so that made him look a bit harder as well, because he used to have those little tufts coming through his scrum cap when he first started. So no, fair play to him, because he was signed as a student, wasn't he? It was like Pat saw him for Durham or something, and he'd been in Durham 4th team at like not that much earlier, and then I think he's one of the kind of signings of the last few years for sure. Right, last one then. I really appreciate your time. It's brilliant to chat to you. I know you do like a little bit of cricket. I know a few of your mates who play cricket. So in the off season, when you've won the the playoffs, and are you going to come back and turn out for Bishopston Thirds at all? I'd love to. I used to be out at that club every summer, every week for about 6-7 years. And I used to play under Andy Robertson. Andy Robertson loved cricket and let boys play. Yeah. But if I came and played, I don't know, broke my finger, broke my wrist, I'd be in a lot of trouble. But maybe I'll come down and have a pint with you. But I don't think I'll be playing again. Well, we always need scorers and stuff like that as well. So yeah, I'll be on umpire. I'll umpire for the 4ths or the 5ths now. Yeah, the 5ths. Yeah, it's a big club. All right, mate. Well, look, I really appreciate that. It's appreciate you giving up your time. I think you got a game on Saturday, haven't you, as well? Yeah. Who are you playing? Scarlets, but I was terrible last week, man. My worst game of the season last week, mine. So I don't know if I'll be playing. All right, so you haven't. Oh yeah, you don't know the team. It hasn't been. All right. Yeah, probably I might have the full chop, but we'll see. We'll see. But well, if you do get picked, good luck, and good luck for the rest of the season. And hopefully, at some point, we'll see you back at Ashton Gate, either in the opposition, or maybe, you never know, the twilight of your career. Come back for a couple of years, take over as scrum coach, DOR, before you know it. Kitman be one for me. Brilliant. Cheers. Thanks very much, Joe.
Okay, lads. Well, it was great to hear Joyce's voice again. I mean, it reminded me just what a great guy he is, and what a kind of natural bloke he is. Really willing to talk about all sorts of subjects. Very honest, and yeah, just a real pleasure. And really appreciate Joe coming on. I mean, Lee, what's your first your thoughts when you heard that interview?
First of all, as you just said, love the honesty. It kind of like a little bit surprising in terms of like, potentially staying with Bears and being offered the contract, but kind of, Galway was calling, wasn't it? And it was kind of something that I've probably shocked us at the time a little bit more, but you could see why Joyce wanted to make the move, and I think it's something that if he didn't, I think he would have regretted later on when he'd finished his playing career. And and he's doing well there, isn't he? I mean, I know he did. He was brutally honest, wasn't he? Which I loved, but he'd had a bit of a shocker, hadn't he? The last game, so he was dropped. But yeah, I just loved the brutal honesty, and I think the shocking thing for me was that his services were offered to the boys up at Gloucester, which I just I know it's not bad. But he, I still wouldn't have. I couldn't have seen him in a Gloucester shirt, boys. Could you, in a cherry and white?
Yeah, I wonder whether that was really that serious. And I mean, it did make me laugh to say that he instigated, the move by just texting a few people himself. I mean, I thought these guys had agents and stuff like that. But fair play to him. But yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was interesting that. Sorry, Miles. It was interesting that he'd been offered this 3-year deal and a testimonial, but in a way it was that made him go, because he knew that if he took it, he would probably be at Bristol for the rest of his career and maybe wouldn't get an opportunity. So I think fair play to Joe for kind of for going, so he could widen his horizons. And as I joked with him, I said, I'm sure he'll be back at some point. DOR scrum coach, and he said no, maybe kit man. So not. So we'll see him at some point. But Miles, yeah, you were going to say?
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, like you boys said, I mean, I love his honesty. And he admitted himself. He's no spring chicken, is he? And you're right. I mean, a little chip up the M5 would have suited him nicely. But I love the fact he's going back to his roots, his mother and father, and the island. And and I think Connaught's been a great choice for him. He's played fantastically, albeit not in the last week, but he just showed, and the description of that game against Bristol, that his mindset was really, properly focused on the game. It would have been very easy for him to. We were laughing at the weekend where we sort of sprinkle a few little bits and pieces in the coffees of the lads on the night before, give them the shits maybe something. But I love the fact that he's such good friends with the Bristol boys. However, on the day, head down, ultimate professional. He got on with it, and freely admitted they just smashed us on the night. So he's a top bloke, and hopefully we'll be back to a cup of coffee with you at cricket ground at some point, Pete.
Yeah, well, fair play. Yeah, Lee, what do you want to say?
Well, I just wanted to check actually, because we played so badly over there. Are you sure Joyce didn't slip something in the drinks the night before?
Well, maybe. Boys, I'm thinking the same thing. And actually, it wasn't even the night before. He said he went over the hotel in the morning. And I mean, we were quite lethargic, weren't we, in that game? Didn't really get out of second or third gear. I mean, and poor old Josh Caulfield, now it all makes sense. I mean, he stamped on Finlay Beelan's head, but I think he saw about 4 heads and he was trying to miss them all. And
he went for the one in the middle.
He went for the one in the middle, and he chose wrong, didn't he? You know what? I wonder, Joycey, the devious little thing. I reckon he slipped something in those coffees. But,
so you think by the fact that he's just mentioned that he was with the team, he's like trying to double bluff us, maybe, look. Wow, throw us off the scent.
Well, I mean, that would be at least some excuse for the terrible performance we put in that night, because nothing else seems to make sense, did it? But yeah, no, I mean, brutally honest, really good guy. I mean, a couple of other things that came out of that was that he listened to the Dave Atwood interview, so that was quite exciting. He'd actually, without being prompted, he'd actually listened to it, and actually, I found it quite interesting that he had a similar thing to say about life under Pat. as Dave did, this idea of Pat being very sort of focused and having clarity about everything and being incredibly impressed when Pat arrived with the clarity. And I think, we've had arguments, for and against, and there's been a lot of debate in other forums about, where we're going as a club. But I do think that, clarity is something that is interesting and clearly something that Pat does have, but we just, hopefully just be clear in another direction. Yeah, Lee, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll all agree it certainly, ignited something in Joycey, didn't it? Because, he admitted freely he was way down the pecking order when Pat first come in. But he was one of those standout players who actually just, kind of came out of himself, didn't he? And, didn't take him very long before, he was starting to be first choice on the team sheet, so to speak. So, obviously, Pat Lam sprinkling that bit of magic that he's got obviously worked for Joycey, didn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean, the other thing that I found interesting in that interview was who he perceived as being the kind of hard men at Bears, and obviously he said Genji, and he said Jan Thomas, of course, but also, obviously 3 Bristolians. But it was quite interesting that he said Alapati was someone that kind of went through brick roles for the club, but didn't even have any ACLs. I mean, incredible. And actually, it made me think back a little bit to those times with Alapati. And I kind of, I feel a bit nostalgic for those times because he was a great player, wasn't he? He was, pick the ball, just run.
Yeah.
A bit like, the guy that played for England at the weekend, the Welsh bloke, who was, he's a direct winger, gets the ball, runs at the opposition, goes looking for work. And, sometimes I think we overcomplicate rugby, and Alapati was one of those players that I do think we miss in the squad. So that was kind of interesting. But it was the other thing that he said that Fitzharding was a bit of a beast, although he did qualify that by saying he was rugby hard rather than I assume he meant like
fighting
social hard.
Yeah,
Fighting hard. So fair, and actually kind of explains a little bit why Fitz has risen through the ranks so quickly, that he's obviously a committed sort of guy and leads by example and so on.
And also one of those players who kind of came through a little bit like Callum Sheedy did when Pat first took over. It was one of those surprise names almost, for the leadership group, being someone so young. And Fitzharding's kind of taken that mantle on, hasn't he?
No, absolutely. Well, boys, I mean, the rest of the interview kind of speaks for itself, really. But again, I'd just like to reiterate, how our thanks to Joe for coming on, and it has kind of made me think, boys, that if we do a few more interviews, and this fallow period has kind of precipitated these things, that it's actually it's quite good trying to get in touch with people who've just left Bristol,
absolutely.
and get a nice rounded kind of view of life. So maybe that's something we should try and pursue in the future.
Well, I'll tell you what, why can't we put it out and see who the listeners might, some names that the listeners might want us to try and get hold of for an interview. That'd be quite interesting.
That'd be a great idea. And if they've got anyone's email address or phone number, even better.
Even better. Yeah.
Well, if they live next door to them, you'll come round. Love it.
Yeah. I think that's something to look forward to. Well, anyway, we'll see. Hopefully we'll get a few comments back on Joyce's interview, and it will give some of our fans something interesting to listen to. But as I did say earlier, there has actually been some Bristol Bears rugby, but it's been the Bristol Bears women. And I think since the last time we podded, which was me and Lee together, where they just played Loughborough Lightning, I think they've played Trailfinders since then. And then on Sunday, they had a kind of top of the table clash with Saracens and came out on top with a bonus try win. And actually, I put the feelers out to our various outdoor reporters that we have, our outside broadcast reporters, to see if there was anyone who actually went to the game on Sunday. And I got a reply back from a very good friend of the pod, Marcus Watts, and he actually sent me a kind of short 1.5 minute summary of the game. So I think before we talk about it, let's hear what Marcus had to say.
Hi, Marcus Watts here, reporting in for Bears Beyond the Gate. just got back from Shaftesbury Park following an excellent 35 points to 10 victory by Bristol Bears women over Saracens women. Bristol Bears got off to a really fast start with tries through Phoebe Murray and Renika Bonner opening up a 14-0 lead early on in the first half. Saracens clawed their way back in through the remainder of the first half to take us into half-time at 14-10. Bears, however, were out of the gates again really quickly in the second half, opening up a 21 points to 10 lead with a try through Lark Davis. Who else? They continued to control the second half, and the icing was put on the cake with late tries through Phoebe Murray for her second and Renika Bonner for her second as well. Bears consolidated their fourth place in the table with this victory, but firmly have their eyes further up the table with third place a distinct possibility and second place a bit of a stretch, but also a possibility, as the three above us, Gloucester, Saracens and Exeter, have to play each other in the remaining games, whilst we are able to consolidate and maybe push on our position with games against teams all below us in the league. Get along to Shaftesbury Park for the next game. It's well worth the day out.
Okay, guys. Well, Marcus is very, very concise, gets to the point. But I think what he demonstrated, or what he told us, was that, yeah, I mean, what a great result that was by Bristol Bears. I mean, it was, they started well, and then never looked back. And Saracens, by the sounds of it, didn't get any foothold in the game at all. And of course, what that has done is slightly opened up the possibility, albeit maybe an outside chance, of actually catching Saracens. There are no games now, typically, for a few weeks because of the Six Nations. But I think they're only 5 points behind Sarries. Maybe Sarries have got a game in hand, but Bristol have got 3 more games left, all against winnable opposition who are below them. Whereas I think the top 3 have got to play each other together. So it seems like Dave Ward and his team have just managed to get the women's team kind of peaking just at the right time.
Yeah, and obviously the most important thing is that I think that gap still might be, pushing it a bit. But then if we go on a run now, who knows? But more importantly, we've kind of cemented fourth, haven't we? So we're in the mix, aren't we? And to be honest, I can remember we said, months and months ago, it wasn't about the early season games. It was about finding our peak at the right time. And, that performance was class. And, it seems to be like we're hitting our straps at the right time now. So who knows?
Yeah, no, I think that's something we've got to keep an eye on. And we've got to keep our diaries open for... the playoffs. It will be definitely and maybe a final. So it's going to, as a go, we, now that we didn't
get some dates in our diary, boys, don't we?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, given that we failed miserably in getting any silverware with the Sports Podcast Awards, and Bristol, the men are kind of floundering a little bit. Maybe it is the women that we've got to hope we get some silverware.
Well, on that note as well, we should say that I think there's over 15,000 tickets that have been sold for the England-Wales game, the Women's Six Nations. So, at Ashton Gate. So that's a really good figure, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, and then of course there will be some Bristol Bears representation. I think with the England squad was announced this week. It's Hannah Bottoman, Lark, Atkin Davies, Holly Aitchison. And who else was picked? Oh, God, I should know. And I've got momentarily gone wrong. I'm sure somebody will remind us who else got. Oh, of course, Abby Ward. How could I forget? Yes, and I mean, what a story that is as well, though. With Abby Ward's kind of journey from England legend, having a baby, coming back, and now an England legend again. So yeah, it's going to be really exciting to watch that Six Nations. All to play for, something to look forward to. Anything else you want to add about the women's game, boys, or should we move on?
I think that's it. I would say, was it Renika Bonner had a absolute classic, didn't she? She was on fire. So I thought, worthy mention in dispatches, I think. Yeah,
she got a brace.
England under 20s as well.
Yeah. Brace for Bonner. And also a brace for Phoebe Murray as well. So it was a really good, really good performance all round. So up the Bears, we say. Right, let's move on. Well, boys, next thing on the agenda was a bit of news came out the club. I mean, the first thing I should say is there was a game. There was the Bedford away game that happens Friday before last. Miles, is there anything you want to say about that?
Well, I mean, a great result. I mean, there were a lot of tries scored, weren't there? And I think we realised that there were two separate teams in each half, weren't there? So I don't think we could read too much into the scoreline. Clearly, we took our attacking game, got everyone on the pitch. I mean, well, to be fair, there is something to say about it, isn't there? The fact that some players appear to have come back from injury that fans knew nothing about. So, wasn't it fantastic to see Jan Thomas starting and Jay Tyack, who we haven't seen, poor Jan all season, and Jay got injured on the first game of the season. So, I mean, that is fantastic. And, the Premiership is about to restart, and that's only just going to bolster our pack. So, a good game. I suspect not many fans could go because Bedford on a Friday night is very difficult. But loved it. Loved the scoreline, and I love the fact that all these players got a good chance to play.
I mean, there was some moaning on forums, weren't there, about the fact that we conceded a load of tries. But I mean, what do you think about that, Lee?
I think that's a load of nonsense, mate. I'll be honest. It was a friendly to get some minutes into the legs, and honestly, some of the comments that I read, and you just think, like Miles has said, it was two teams. We played a completely different team in the second half. It wasn't anything to do with bloody, keeping it tight at the back, so to speak, was it? It was just getting some minutes in legs and almost like attack versus defence, wasn't it? And I just found it a bit embarrassing how some of the supporters had gone mad about, we're conceding too many tries. Defensive coach needs sacking. And it's like, come on. I know we criticise, on occasion, but we only do it when it's warranted, and I just think that was completely bonkers, really.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think, like anything, the proof will be in the pudding on a week on Friday when the Saints come rolling into town, and we'll see where we're at. We'll see whether this fallow period has been good for us, or whether it's been a bit barren. Well, anyway, the other thing that came out of the club was a news of some contract extensions, and as is the way with our social media team, is they excelled themselves once again with a World Book Day theme, which was absolutely brilliant. Some excellent links to classics that I know all of us, having had kids, not that long ago, we're all very familiar with a lot of those books, and it was brilliant. I mean, just go through the list of players that did re-sign. We had George Taylor, who maybe someone not many people know about, but I actually do know a little bit about George because his dad is a friend of one of my mates, and I think he's a QH boy, and he was highly regarded in the academy, has been off to Loughborough University, but has obviously, is been signed as a prospect for the future. He's a no nonsense back rower. George Klosker, has re-signed. Then we also had Will Capon. In a way, he's almost like he's a stalwart, isn't he? I mean, now that Joyce is left, it's almost like Will Capon is the next longest serving Bristolian. Harry Rowson, the young speedster who made a bit of an impact early in the season before he got injured and was about to get picked for the Leicester game, wasn't it? And having impressed in the Premiership Cup game, so it's good to see that he's going to be with us for a few more years. There was also Big Joe Owen, who's come on a couple of times, and then three probably what might be considered established first team players in James Williams, the legend, Sam Graham-Slaw, who maybe not as first team established, but came from the front rower that came from Jersey, and of course Big Josh Caulfield, who has made his mark this season, quite literally on Finlay Beelam's head. But anyway, so any comments on the book choices, Lee? You're a man of reading and words. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, it has been a few years since I read the children's books, but I thought it was an absolutely novel idea, boys. It was
brilliant, mate. That's brilliant.
That's taken
You
us in
like that,
Sunday
didn't
to
We haven't-
nail
I
that
know.
one, isn't it?
But no, it was class from the social media team as always, wasn't it? And I think, well deserved to each and every one of those guys that, have renegotiated contracts and all deserved. I think they all merit a place, certainly fighting in for the first team spots in the next year or two.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, as well as the World Book Day signings, previous to that, we'd also had Kofi Cripps had been signed,
Yeah.
that very young England under 20 back rower
Flanker.
who, flanker, by all accounts, was ripping it up at Clifton earlier in the season, and I got that on good authority from a couple of mates of mine who know quite a lot about that. So he looks like a good prospect. Alongside, when you think we've got the young Grondona and the older Grondona as well, I mean, it does kind of suggest that maybe the thing we were discussing a few pods ago, that the pack 2.0, where we start to beef up the pack a little bit, maybe coming to fruition. And then the other one, of course, was Big James Dunn, who got his own kind of re-signing, didn't he? It wasn't a World Book Day re-signing.
Yeah.
He got his own kind of media splash and a kind of soft focus interview at the training centre, and what a nice guy he was. And it was really interesting to hear him speak about the influence of his dad, who obviously was also a Bristol player and sadly passed away last year. And it was really that was a really good story. I mean, he's clearly, it's clearly a really good player, and we've seen him this season, and he looks like a thoroughbred. Given it's Cheltenham week, let's use a few horse references. I'd say he's a Gold Cup candidate, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And he's bulked up as well, hasn't he? So I mean,
yes, yeah,
quite comfortable. Can play, second row as well. He's played a few times now, and he's one of those players. I was quite excited watching him play right from his debut onwards, really. And again, really well deserved. It just feels like maybe we're don't want to sound too optimistic, but Pat Lam Mark II. I think we've got some really good things to be optimistic about.
Yeah, we've got some specimens, haven't we? I think we've got a few filthy rigs on the roster by the looks of it. So yeah, I know what you mean. Why not? We've got to be positive and we've got to be optimistic. And I do. I wouldn't. People might say, well, there was nothing kind of nothing world class in that. But people like James Williams, Josh Caulfield, they're the heartbeat of consistent Premiership rugby team. You need solid foundations, and Will Capon is another. I mean, we did discuss this on Sunday, didn't we? We said that if Will Capon to me is like Theo Dan at Saracens. The guy is. I can't see a massive difference between them. And if Will Capon was at Saracens, I wonder whether he'd have made an England.
Well, I mean,
although he has been under 20 when he was younger, but.
It does make you feel, though, that we do seem to get beaten with the short stick a little bit in terms of people coming through international wise. And I know we've not had a great season, but it feels like there's plenty of other teams that haven't had great seasons, and yet all of a sudden you see 2 or 3 players pop up in the international setup, and we don't seem to ever have that. And obviously with Randall, Randall's been popped in and out of that England squad, left, right, and centre. He probably doesn't know whether he's coming or going.
Well, yeah, I mean, on that note, that's an interesting note you make, because I was very fortunate to go to Twickenham on Saturday, and Alex Mitchell was brilliant. I mean, I've always said Alex Mitchell's the best scrum half, and when he's playing behind a pack that's on the front foot, he's unstoppable. And the one criticism I had about the game on Saturday was that they took Alex Mitchell off and brought Danny Kerr on. Great servant, 100th cap, but actually it didn't make any sense. And actually, someone like Harry Randall coming on for Alex Mitchell, a similar sort of player to keep the tempo going, would have make much more sense. And it was Danny Kerr. It wasn't even Ben Spencer on the bench. So yeah, let's every season's a new season, and if England do appear to be playing a slightly more kind of expansive game with some sort of intensity, well, maybe some of our Bears, it'll incentivise them to do the same thing and try and get in that squad in the future. Miles, anything you want to say about book day? Did you?
No, I thought it was fantastic. I think you're right. I mean, a lot of those were sort of young and up and coming players, but they featured a lot this season. I think some more than others. And you're right, the Dunn re-signing separately was fantastic. Big pat on the back. And I think it just bodes well for next season. You're right, we're absolutely bulking up the pack. We haven't got any filthy South Africans, but we've got some sly sort of Argentinians in the midst instead. And
not that we like really to do any stereotyping or anything on this.
No, absolutely not. But I'm really looking forward to sort of seeing the Grondola brothers when fit, play next season. It's just you're right. It's really exciting. Whether we're going to see them play the sort of rest of the Premiership this season, don't know, but next season, thoroughly excited about all those signings.
Yeah. Let's hope you don't bump into the Grondolas then.
No, I hope not.
I'm not sure.
I haven't seen them thus far. Maybe they don't live around here, hopefully.
Brilliant. All right. Well, boys, I think that's the signings done. Well, yeah, we've done well. Actually, we've been a bit more concise than we were on Sunday, haven't we? Which is probably a good thing, to be fair.
Yeah.
So maybe it was, positive things often come out of negatives. I don't know. I did say at the beginning that I did have a bit of a goat, didn't I? And it's a good goat, and I may as well tell you, it's. As you know, I'm a teacher, and one of the good things about teaching is that whilst they never really show it at the time, when people have left your school, pupils suddenly realise that they are quite grateful for some of the work you put in, and as such, I had a group of students last year who were in year 13, and they left in the summer. One student in particular spent quite a lot of time with trying to help and all that sort of stuff, and was really pleased with the results that were got. And they all often disappear, and then you hear from them from time to time. But anyway, I was in reception yesterday, and the said student was there with her mum, and they'd specifically come in to find me to give me a present. And I always say we don't expect these things, but we always appreciate them if they do happen. And boys, I'm going to hold up the present on the screen, and I think Lee, I'd like you to tell the listeners, because obviously this is not a visual sort of thing. Tell the listeners what I was given as a leaving present.
Oh, that is a beauty, mate. That is a Bristol Bears hip flask. Is it got anything inside it at the moment or not?
Well, no. I mean, you're not allowed alcohol on school premises, but
Oh.
yeah, it's a Bristol Bears hip flask given to me by an ex-student. I mean, it tells me two things. One, that she was grateful, but two, that I spent an awful lot of time in lessons talking about rugby. But the thing, this is not the goat. This is the nice bit. The goat was the fact that the mum was highly apologetic and said, "We're so sorry it's taken us this long to give you your present, because obviously the student left in July and it's now March." She left in July 2023. It's now March 2024. And the mum said, it's taken us this long. We don't, we really apologise, but the item in case was out of stock for 6 months. So they have been waiting to get this back in stock at the Bears shop.
They're coming into the spring when you're probably maybe moving away from such
I know. I would have loved it. In December, a little bit of whiskey. So, I mean, it made me laugh because I thought, fair play to them. There you go. There is another quality merchandising story.
To be fair, though, it is a lovely present, Pete. And
it is.
we and I think me and Miles, we'll both agree you are a pretty damn good teacher. So it's well deserved, mate. So. When you stick some whiskey in that, me and Miles will do our best to help you drink it.
I think that's fair enough. I think we can share it round, because I think your names might have got mentioned in a few lessons as well. So you're part of the you're part of the whole thing. In the sense that these are two people you should avoid if you happen to be in BS3.
This is what not to do when you're at school.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, boys, I think we're going to call it a day. So it's been great to chat. Sorry again about the battery malfunction on Sunday. We will be back hopefully with another pod on Sunday. They're going to come thick and fast, where we're going to be previewing the Premier restart. It seems like years since the last competitive game we had, but we're going to give it a go so we can speculate on the team, and maybe if we're lucky, we may have something else lined up for that pod. So, everyone, thanks for listening. Stay safe, and everyone,
come on, you Bears.
Bears. Cheers.